Thank you, John. And thank you all for making the effort to be here today. It's my huge pleasure and privilege, really, to put faces to names to so many people that I've had fascinating conversations with over the previous weeks leading up to today. So welcome to those of you who are here for the first time, and of course always lovely to see familiar faces too, from far and wide. Jim, who comes every year from the USA, so it's lovely to see you here. Okay, so just very briefly, and mindful of time, I wanted to just update you a little bit about the plans for the group and highlight some of the main events that marked the previous year. But I think in the light of presenting that, I just think the context is very important to set, and that is the context in terms of why the support group exists at all. And the fundamental reason that this support group exists, obviously, is initially as a carer support group. More recently, it's extended to become a patient and carer support group. But in the light of ever-changing attempts to meet needs, the most basic need that the group seeks to serve and to meet is unchanged, and that is the need in all of us to be heard, to be listened, and to be understood. And I think that need changes not. The ways in which we seek to address it and meet it may change, but that basic fundamental need changes not. So facilitating the hearing, the listening and the understanding is a key role of the support group, of course. And how we seek to achieve this will change, whether that's through personal contact or increasingly through the social media platforms that we have available to us. But I just wanted to begin by sharing two quotes with you. If you don't mind just having a read of those. So whether you feel you associate with the sentiment expressed by C.S. Lewis, or indeed identify with the more emotional representation expressed more recently by Alexine Crawford, I'm sure you will also relate to this very honest expression conveyed by a carer in this clip.
Hi.
I remember talking to another family, believe it or not, in this neighborhood, whose husband has this, and they said, you know, he has frontal temporal dementia. And I just remember like the hair on my neck standing up going, oh my God, somebody else has this horrible disease. And then becoming involved with AFTD and the caregiver groups and people around the country. It's like, you know, we all are part of this shitty club and we're trying to make the most of it.
What we've come to realize.
Whatever your sentiment, whatever your reason for being here, I hope that today is an opportunity to meet other people in similar situation to yourselves. Very quickly, an update with respect to where we left last year. Since our appeal for more regional contact people, we were delighted to invite 7 more regional contact people into the group and host meetings in Cambridge and Hertfordshire, Cornwall and Scotland over the last year. They're new regional meetings that we're delighted to have been able to host. We are still, of course, always welcoming new people into the regional contact person role. So if that's a role you feel interested in talking about, please feel free to grab me in one of the coffee breaks. Our mail shot with Alzheimer's Research UK, which I talked about as a plan last year, did actually go ahead, and we successfully got our literature into every GP surgery across the UK, thanks to the funding that Alzheimer's Research UK gave us. Our Raising Awareness campaign continues on an ongoing basis, and sort of one of the moments that I just wanted to mention to you today was a radio interview that we did with Radio 5 Live, which went out as a live broadcast one Sunday morning, and I was hoping that Angela would be here by now. I don't think she is. I wanted to thank her personally for the contribution she made to that interview. as a carer and somebody who was able to express the very real sentiment of what it means to live with her husband and her husband to experience frontotemporal dementia firsthand. So in her absence, I'd like to thank Angela for her contribution on that day. 2 new support groups, which we have the pleasure and privilege of now working alongside. They are the familial FTD support group, so specifically for people who have an inherited form of this disease, and also the PPA support group, of which there are several members here today as well. So there's a lot of crossover between the resources that all these 3 groups employ, and the strategies that we can share between the 3 groups is hugely valuable. Our assessment tool, which I mentioned last year, is almost ready. It's been piloted and it's ready almost to go on the website for its next stage of piloting. And just to mention the increasing range of healthcare professionals that are contacting the group on a very regular basis, certainly as the kind of focal point of contact. I've seen a huge increase in the range of people that are now getting in touch, which is great. And just one of the areas that we would hope, looking ahead, to address, and this has come from people within the group declaring there to be a need, would be to try and raise awareness, perhaps amongst some of those more counselling type services where people tend quite often to end up along their way to a diagnosis of FTD. So obviously, that's not to say that every person who ends up in marriage guidance counselling, for example, this won't be relevant, but there may be ways and means that we can broach that field of professionals and perhaps increase awareness in a way that certainly, from what we hear within the group, would be important and necessary. Looking ahead, we are talking about and considering whether to try and develop a more personal and intimate sort of buddying scheme within the group. The decision not made yet, sort of people on both sides of the fence as to whether or not that's a useful initiative. We're trying to produce an FTD-specific guide to finding a care home, so adapting some of the literature that's already out there in a way that's perhaps a little bit more FTD-specific. Our literature is due for an update, so I'm working on that at the moment and hope to have that in print by the end of the year. And our website also, we plan to have some useful additions to the menu on the drop-down bar of the website. And so, as I said, despite all of that, we remain committed to the mandate which we sort of set the group up with in 1995, which is now as it was then. And I'd just invite you really to make the most of what today offers. As John has already mentioned, people come with different expectations, and the parts of the day which are difficult to manage and parts of the day which are painful to engage in. But I hope that you really are able to take what you want from the day, leave what you don't, and make the most of our time together. And if there's anything that we can do to facilitate that for you, don't hesitate to get in touch with me, to shout me, grab me, whatever you need to do to get my attention, and I'll do my best to make sure that we can achieve this.